We can start. Today we'll have a case presentation on renal mass. The case will be presented by Dr. Shreya Shah, who is a third-year resident at IPGM RSKM Hospital, and Professor Devanshu Shankar, he is Professor of Urology at IPGM RSKM Hospital, will take us through the case scenario. So, Dr. Shreya, you can please start. Share your screen and start.
Sir, may I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Proceed with your history.
Yes, sir. A patient, a 52-year-old gentleman, Mr. X, Muslim, male, resident of Nodia, West Bengal, who was carpenter by profession, was admitted on 27th of July and was examined on 3rd of August 2021. He presented with a chief complaint of a lump in the left loin for the last 6 months and pain in the left loin for last 3 months, with intermittent passage of blood in urine for last 1.5 months. History of present illness. The patient was apparently well 6 months back when he suddenly noticed a lump in the left loin. The lump has rapidly increased from its initial size of about 5 into 5 centimeters according to the patient's gesture to attain the present size of about 7 into 7 centimeters according to patient's gesture. There is no history of variation in the size of the lump on posture change and on straining. No similar lump is present on the other side. There is no history of change in size of the lump following micturition. He also complained of pain in the left loin for 3 months. The pain is dull aching in character, continuous with occasional exacerbations. Pain is not aggravated during micturition, and there is no history of any radiation of pain from loin to groin. It has no specific aggravating factors and is relieved partly by medication. There is also a history of painless passage of blood in urine since last 1.5 months on 2 occasions at an interval of 12 to 15 days, which had lasted for about 1 day. Slight blood was mixed with urine throughout the duration of voiding. No blood clots were present. There was no history of associated burning sensation while micturition, fever, frequency, or urgency. And there was no difficulty in voiding. There is no history of any weight loss. Patient complains of malaise and lethargy. There is no history of fever, cough, breathlessness, palpitations, new onset bone pain, yellowish discoloration of eyes, urine, or any history of headache or blurring vision. Past history. No major medical illness has occurred in the past. He is a known hypertensive on medication since last 6 years. There is no history of contact with pulmonary tuberculosis. Family history. His parents are not alive and both had natural death due to senility. He had 2 sisters and 3 brothers, and none of them suffered from any disease. No history of any cancer deaths or kidney disease present in the family members. Personal history. He is married since 24 years with a spouse and children, all of whom are normal. He has normal sleep and bowel habits. He has a history of painless passage of blood in urine, as discussed earlier, and his appetite is reduced. He has a history of addiction to smoking 20 bidis daily for last 25 years. Treatment history. He has a history of taking analgesics intermittently to relieve pain in the left loin, and he is a known hypertensive on medication since last 6 years. Allergy history. There is no known allergy to any drugs or food materials.
Okay.
physical exam.
Wait, sir. We can have some discussion on the history presentation.
Okay, sir.
Okay, Shreya, so you have presented the history quite elaborately. So based on this history, can you come to a diagnosis, differential diagnosis? You don't give any negative points, just give the positive points based on which you want to make a diagnosis.
Okay, sir. Sir, an elderly patient who is presenting with hypertension and a lump in the left loin associated with hematuria and pain, suggestive of a renal mass. And looking at all the features, I feel it can be of malignant origin.
Okay.
Is this patient presenting with the classical triad?
Yes, sir.
So,
Pain, swelling in the left loin, pain, and hematuria, which is the classical triad. Patient has all the three
and
features.
pain. And the loin pain.
Yes, sir.
So as
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Sarkar asked you, we should come to this, that this patient has present the classical triad of carcinoma. So that is a most pertinent feature in this patient.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, any other differential diagnosis? Okay, that is the first diagnosis.
Yes, sir.
Any other diagnosis?
Sir, this patient can... Yes, sir. Sir, he can also have hydronephrosis of left-sided kidney, or there may be a hydrated cyst of the left-sided kidney.
Anything else?
Or sir, any left-sided retroperitoneal mass which is encroaching onto the kidney.
Yeah, you confine to the diagnosis which are having these some features.
Yes.
Why hydroperitoneal mass will have hematuria? So you give some diagnosis where the pain, the swelling, and the hematuria fits in. There are some other kidney conditions even which can have such features. So don't jump to some diagnoses which are very remote.
Okay, sir.
Can it be tuberculosis in the kidney?
Yes, sir. Tuberculosis of kidney.
Can it be stone disease in the kidney?
Sir, since there is no feature of
patient is pain,
fever.
You need not make all the features. You see, even a patient with stone disease may present with some of these overlapping features. So instead of saying hydrated cyst, you should be more, what, Dr. Sarkar, what do you feel?
Yes, sir. In a diagnosis, you take all the histories and clinical examination, and what do you think the most important should be the first diagnosis? That is right. In this case, this is a lump, pain, and hematuria. So first diagnosis RCC or renal malignancy. But you should tell also stone disease, any lower tract malignancy that can also present with the symptoms of tuberculosis. So in those cases, if I tell you, so do you think this is a stone disease? You say, yes, sir, this can be a stone disease because this patient has pain, hematuria. Sometimes they can present with lump also. But that is my first diagnosis because these are the features which is not there. So while you consider the diagnosis phase most will be first diagnosis. You should not get 100% in all cases, but you have to some positive finding and some negative finding also. So why it's not a primarily tuberculosis? Why RCC comes before tuberculosis?
Yes, sir. So the patient has no history of any contact with pulmonary tuberculosis or no history of having pulmonary tuberculosis. In case of renal TB, it is always secondary. So here I will rule out that condition.
Okay, that is one thing. And in all cases, you may not get any history of tuberculosis. Any other thing which goes against tuberculosis? No.
Sir, weight loss and other constitutional fever, weight loss, those things are not present in this case.
Yes, tuberculosis is associated with storage symptoms, frequency, urgency, noxuria. That is very much prominent tuberculosis, which is not there according to your history. So it can be tuberculosis, but that should not be first diagnosis. Okay.
Okay.
Why not? This is a stone disease. Why it can be a stone disease and why not this is a stone disease? positive findings, negative findings?
So this patient has presented with pain, hematuria. So these are positive findings in case of a stone disease. And since the swelling that the patient has presented with is not transient and it is long-standing, like it is continuing for last 6 months, so I feel that it is not a case of stone disease.
No, it's not that. I think stone disease normally does not cause huge hydronephrosis. Okay, that is the first diagnosis against stone disease. It can, but it's not the normal feature. Okay.
And the classic gradation of pain. In
yes.
stone disease, you may have classic gradation of the pain. So if that is there, that goes on more in favor. If you have pain from loin to groin, that often indicates that it might be a stone disease.
So why do you think this patient is having pain, or what are the conditions which causes pain in RCC? Can you hear, Shreya?
Shreya, can you hear us?
He has lost his connections.
He's probably coming back.
Yeah.
Shreya, can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay. Dr. Sarkar has asked you a question.
Did you hear the question? I asked you why there is pain in RCC.
Shreya, you heard the question? Connection. Suman, can you answer? Speak in the mic. Come here. Come. So he is Ganesh Guru. Ganesh, can you tell us the answer to this question?
So,
why patient having renal calcium may have pain?
Sir, stretching of the renal capsule leads to pain.
One is stretching. What else?
If the mass is obstructing the pelvic junction, there will also the patient will have the pain.
Okay. Third.
In advanced disease?
Sir, infiltration of the nose.
Okay. Fourth, anything else? See, these are very common questions asked in exam. Why there is pain in RCC? Okay. One is if there is stretching because of the mass, or if there is obstruction to the PCS leading to a calyceal or gross hydronephrosis stretching. Second is if the patient
mass, so that no space to expand, so the patient may have the pain. Retroperitoneal mass closed compartment.
Right.
So
if the patient has hematuria, he or she might have clot calling. Third is if there is any hemorrhage, sudden hemorrhage, if there may be pain. Fourth is if there is any infection leading to localized inflammation linked to pain. And fifth is if the locally advanced disease leading to infiltration of the parietes that can cause pain, both muscular pain or neurologic pain, depending on the infiltration. These are the 5 things you very commonly asked in exams. Okay, you need to know. Okay. So this patient has classical symptoms of pain, hematuria, and lump. So in what % of cases you get this kind of symptoms in RCC?
Around 10-20% of the patients.
Yes, maximum 20% cases. And what is the most common presentation nowadays?
So mass, abdominal mass, lumps, pain.
No. Most common, this is incidentally diagnosed because of the rampant USG and all these things. It's not incidentally diagnosed. You do USG from some other reasons and get a renal lump. That is the most common presentation. Okay, this classic presentation is rare, at the most 20%. Okay. So if you get a classic presentation, so what is in your mind? Is this a early case or this is an advanced case? Anything that
Advanced
comes?
cases. Patient in advanced case only usually present with the triad of the features. Early features, in early case of carcinoma, most of the times it is missed.
Okay, so let's go to this examination part. How do you examine this patient? Is there anything in the history?
No, history we have covered well. And second is you should also think of other associated disease which may be coexisting with the renal disease. That means renal carcinoma is part of some syndrome.
Like early onset hypertension, newly diagnosed hypertension in case of elderly, we should suspect.
And some patient may have some atypical symptoms. Atypical symptoms.
What are those atypical symptoms called in RCC, and what are those symptoms? Do you know?
These are classical symptoms. There are some atypical symptoms that also you should ask, because these are easily described as paraneoplastic syndrome.
So hypercalcemia of malignancy.
Yes. What else? Can this patient present with swelling of the whole body?
Yes.
Why? They can present the features of nephrotic syndrome also. Then, can they present with fever?
Yes, sir.
What? This is one of the important causes of pyrexia of unknown origin. Okay.
So you need to know all the paraneoplastic syndromes of RCC, and the very easy way of remembering this, you need to know what are the hormones secreted by the RCC. So you take one of each of them. There can be hypercalcemia, polycythemia. There can be hypertension. What is anything called Stauffer syndrome?
Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yes, yeah. We are coming to you.
I'm so sorry, sir.
No, okay, no problem. Sir, we are discussing a point. What are the atypical symptoms of presentation of renal cell carcinoma? Have you heard, or can just enumerate again?
Yes,
you have
sir.
described the classic symptoms. What are the atypical symptoms you have inquired?
Sir, the patient can present with constitutional symptoms like anemia, weakness, then anorexia, or weight loss.
Can reverse of anemia happen? Can reverse of anemia happen?
Yes, sir. Polycythemia can also be present due to erythropoietin production from the tumor.
Okay, what else? Other presentation?
Sir, there can be hypertension or hypercalcemia. Then bone metastasis and pathological fracture can be present.
These are metastatic features. You see, there are two. Yes. Some features were known as paraneoplastic syndrome, where all the explanation cannot come from the just tumor growth. Okay, so I think we can pass on to the examination. Shreya, you can share your slide again.
Sir, I'm sending the slides to Dr. Milind. It's not getting shared from here.
Okay, नहीं share कर दो फिर दोबारा login किया.
Shared.
You have sent it?
No, sir, I'm sending, sir. Actually, the connectivity in my laptop is not
just send.
working properly.
Keep your video off, huh? Keep your
okay,
video
sir.
off.
So can I just read out my presentation?
Shreya, you just tell me what are the positive clinical things you want to know in a suspected case of RCC and tell that this is present here or not.
Okay, you skip general survey. You skip general survey. Come to the local examination for this patient. What did you find?
Sir, in this patient, sir, just sorry, there are only 3 positive findings in general survey. Can I mention those?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Sir, this patient has a BMI of 27.2 kg per meter square, and there is moderate anemia, and he is a known hypertensive, so his BP is 130 by 78 millimeters of mercury.
Okay, fine.
Moving on to the local examination of abdomen. I'm stating only the salient points, sir. there is, on inspection, there is a lump approximately 10 into 7 centimeters in the left lumbar region, which is extending above into the left hypochondriac region, below into the left iliac fossa, and medially to the umbilical area. It is reniform in shape with smooth surface and regular margins, and moves slightly with respiration. Skin over the swelling is normal. And the left renal angle has a fullness on inspection. On palpation, the site of the lump is found to be same as on inspection, and the size is 10.5 into 7 centimeters. The shape is again reniform, and the margins, the medial, lateral, and inferior margins can be palpated. The superior margin continues beneath the left costal margin, and fingers can be insinuated between the lump and the left costal margin. The surface is regular, consistency is firm, and there is no tenderness over the lump. There is no skin fixity, and the lump moves slightly with respiration. It is bimanually palpable and ballotable. On percussion, the lump is dull on percussion from the back, and a band of colonic resonance is present along the anterior border of the lump. On auscultation, intestinal peristaltic sound is heard all over the abdomen, and no adventitious sounds are heard over the lump. Systemic examination of all other systems are within normal limits. Summary. Sir, shall I move on to the summary?
Just one question. Did you expect something or missed it in examination for locally advanced disease or metastatic disease? Any negative findings?
Sir, during the systemic examination, I examined for any bone tenderness or any icterus was also not present. Then there was no history of headache or blurring vision. The GCS of the patient is also full. So I ruled out all these. The respiratory rate was normal. There was no adventitious breath sounds or any history of breathlessness.
This is a left-sided mass. Have you examined the genitalia? This is a left-sided mass. Have you examined the genitalia?
Yes, sir. Genitalia was normal. All hernial sites and the genitalia were normal.
What specific thing you want to see in genitalia?
So there can be varicocele, there can be a thickening of the spermatic cord, which can be felt on examination. Since left-sided renal cell carcinoma often presents with a left-sided varicocele.
Okay, so any particular term to varicocele is only varicocele or something else? It's a non-reducing varicocele. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Non-reducing varicocele. So, if you get two patients, one is right-sided mass with non-reducing varicocele and left-sided mass with varicocele, which side is more important, left or right?
Sir, right side.
Yes. Okay, fine. And one thing you missed is you have to look for any other lymphadenopathy, axillary or supraclavicular, because sometimes lymphoma may present with renal mass. Okay. So any lymphadenopathy is important in renal cell carcinoma or any renal mass. Okay, otherwise you have completed everything. Okay, summarize.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Moving on to the summary. A 52-year-old gentleman, hypertensive, on medication, carpenter by profession, presented with a lump in the left side of the abdomen for last 6 months, with a continuous dull aching pain in the swelling for last 3 months, which has no radiation and is relieved by analgesic intake. It is associated with painless hematuria, 2 such episodes 12 to 15 days apart with slight blood mixed with urine throughout the period of voiding. There is no history of fever, dysuria, urgency or frequency. There is history of appetite loss. On physical examination, he is overweight, has moderate pallor and is hypertensive. Lymph nodes are not palpable. On local examination of abdomen, He has a 10 centimeter into 7 centimeter non-tender reniform lump occupying the left lumbar, hypochondriac, and umbilical area. It has smooth surface, well-defined margins, is firm in consistency, bimanually palpable and ballotable, and moves slightly with respiration. The left renal angle has a fullness. Fingers can be insinuated between the lump and the left costal margin, and testis and scrotum are within normal limits. Hence, my provisional diagnosis is that this is a case of left-sided renal mass in a 52-year-old hypertensive male, probably renal cell carcinoma.
Shreya, I would prefer that you have described the lump and at the end confirm that it is a renal mass. Instead, I will expect for a PG student that you state to describe this, the left kidney is enlarged and palpable, and give the description.
Sir.
And second is, if the lump is seen on inspection, that means lump is bulging the anterior abdominal wall. In that case, there is no place for ballotability. Don't say that. If the lump is bulging into the anterior abdominal wall, you keep your two hands, there is no place for this to ballot. So you can say bimanually palpable, but don't utter the word that it is ballotable. Dr. Sarkar, what do you feel? How they should describe the lump?
Yes, sir. That is right. So do you know the difference between bimanually palpability and ballotability, and which conditions you'll get ballotability?
Yes, sir. Bimanually palpable means that when we keep one hand on the anterior abdominal wall and one on the posterior abdominal wall and try to feel the lump in between two hands, it is palpable. And ballotability means that when we push the lump with the anterior hand, it touches the posterior and vice versa.
Yes. So why this lump is not ballotable? That was asking, no?
Sir, this lump is huge, so it is not ballotable.
There is no place for ballotability. Okay. Don't do this. Okay, fine. So you have your diagnosis is probably a left-sided RCC, renal mass, probably RCC.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how do you investigate this patient?
And second thing is many genocidal examiner does not agree that you can always have a band of pulmonary resonance, because if you percuss, you find it's dull only. So that is a classic book description, but it's hardly found that you have a band of pulmonary resonance in front of the lump. So if you are not getting in that particular patient, don't say this. This particular finding is not required to have a diagnosis of renal lump.
Okay,
so
sir.
What they should say, sir, it depends on examiner.
Yes, Dr. Sarkar.
Yes. Investigations, proceed.
Yes, sir. Sir, I would like to do some investigations to confirm my diagnosis, and then to stage the disease, and then to plan my management. First, investigations to confirm my diagnosis would be ultrasonography, which is also taken as an extension of clinical examination. And after that, a contrast enhanced CT scan.
Ultrasonography of what? You have
Sir,
to specific.
Ultrasonography of abdomen and KUB region.
Okay, ultrasonography of whole abdomen. If you tell whole abdomen, that includes the KUB also. Okay, why not ultrasonography KUB, USG, KUB? Why not? You are right. So why not USG? Somebody USG, KUB.
Sir, because I will also have to look for features of metastasis or ascites. Yes.
So what do you expect in USG? You have the plate USG?
Sir, the organ of origin, which here we suspect it to be from kidney, so that can be confirmed, number one. Then the nature of the swelling, whether it is solid or cystic, then the size and shape, any other lymphadenopathy, or any local invasion in these can be known from USG.
Anything, USG?
Muscularity?
This guy.
Sir, USG Doppler can tell us about the invasion of renal vein or IVC, tumor thrombi extending into renal vein or IVC.
Okay. One more important thing you missed is echogenicity. Okay.
Pardon, sir?
Echogenicity. It is hyperechoic, hypoechoic, heteroechoic. That is very important. That is the main important thing by which you differentiate between the solid and cystic lesions. Okay. First, you have to know the solid lesion. Sometimes you might have a huge hydronephrotic kidney, and on palpation you cannot say this is RCC or cystic kidney. So ultrasound helps in that. Huh? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
You do have the plate, USG plate with you?
No.
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. So you want to do a CT scan?
Yes, sir.
So what more information a CT will give over USG?
Sir, it will give us the exact extent of the tumor inside the kidney or whether it is extending outside the kidney, and then the function of it can also tell us about extension of tumor thrombus inside the renal vein IVC, and the status of the opposite kidney can also be known. And
no, the most important thing by which a CT diagnoses malignancy versus a benign lesion is how? How does a CT diagnose malignancy? Or what are the features of RCC on CT scan? You need to know that.
Sir, irregular mass.
Now, first, at the early in CT scan, you take the early pictures.
Okay, sir.
What can be seen in the lesion?
Sir, increased vascularity will be there, so contrast blush will be there.
Yes.
Okay.
See, in CT scan, it's a basically multi-phasic CT scan. One is non-contrast, one is arterial phase, one is venous phase, and sometimes we take a delayed phase to look the PCS delayed phase. So the most important thing to diagnose a case of RCC or any renal mass is one is the character, is heterogeneous or homogeneous, and most important is about the contrast enhancement. So if it is a enhancing lesion, then it goes in favor of malignancy. Enhancement should be at least 20 Hounsfield units. That is the most important thing. You see the Hounsfield in the non-contrast phase, and after giving contrast phase, in the contrast phase, you see the what is the Hounsfield unit, and you calculate the difference of Hounsfield unit. If the enhancement is more than 20, you can say most likely this is a malignant lesion. So when you say in exam, you say it is an enhancing lesion with the enhancement of more than 20 cc, so it is malignant lesion. Okay, and other things, heterogeneity, extension, lymph nodes, IVC thrombus, all comes after that. First you have to prove is a malignant lesion. Okay,
sir.
So do you have the CT of this patient?
No, sir, I don't have any plates.
Just a case discussion.
Yes, discussion. Okay. So don't forget about the enhancement. That's the most important thing you need to tell in exam. Okay.
Okay.
So what is the finding in this case? What is the size, renal vein, IVC? What is written in the report? Do you have?
No, sir, I don't have.
Okay, fine. So it's a renal mass 10 into 7 centimeter confined to the kidney. That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, what investigation you need to do?
Then, sir, I would perform other investigations that are required for anesthetic clearance of the patient.
No,
and
staging.
To look for any.
You say staging. Staging is over. Only by CT abdomen.
No, sir. CT abdomen, then CECT thorax and pelvis is also to be done, and also a bone scan if the patient presents with symptoms, suggestive symptoms. Here it is not present, so I would not like to do one.
Don't jump step. The first thing is diagnosis. You have diagnosed, this is RCC, fine. Now you need to stage. Okay, for staging, you need to do a local staging, and if needed, you do a staging of the chest. CT chest is not indicated in all cases. There's specific indications. What are the indications? Only chest X-ray is needed in all cases. That is not for anesthetic reasons. This is for staging also. First thing, if you find some abnormalities in chest X-ray, do a CT scan. Second is, if the patient has chest symptoms in the form of hemoptysis or cough, you do a CT scan chest. Third is, if you have a locally advanced disease in the form of T4 disease, extra-renal disease, extensive lymph node disease, mass more than 10 centimeter. So these are specific indications, so do a CT scan for the staging. Symptomatic patients, chest X-ray abnormal, locally advanced disease. Okay, all cases not needed. Bone scan, if the patient has elevated alkaline phosphatase or if the patient gives history of bone pain. But before all this staging, you need to do urine and LFT specifically for staging. Can you tell me why urine?
So okay. It will help us differentiate between other causes. Pyuria may be present in case of pyelonephritis. Here no, we can get...
Because if you get proteinuria, one of the differential diagnosis is proteinuria IVC thrombosis. So if a patient of RCC has significant proteinuria, I think this patient might be having a IVC thrombosis or renal vein thrombosis. Okay, so you need to investigate on that line. One question, sir, for you, in exam, they should straight away go to CT or they will start with urine and all those things just to differentiate this patient is not having...
For diagnosis confirmation, ultrasound and then CT. Because urine will not give a diagnostic confirmation. So stages will be confirm the diagnosis, some investigation, and then stage the disease. So for confirmation, ultrasound is a extension of clinical examination and then the CT scan. And then staging, as you said, if it's a locally advanced disease, patient has got lymphadenopathy, patient has got some chest symptoms. So a chest CT should be a part of working. But again, the bone scan, there is some drawback of bone scan in renal cell carcinoma because most of these bone metastases are osteolytic lesions. So if you have osteolytic lesions, the bone scan cannot sometimes pick up the osteolytic lesions because bone scan is important when you have some osteoblastic metastasis, which cause hot uptake. And then the other investigation.
Okay, and what about LFT, Shreya?
Sir, LFT can be raised in case of Stoffer syndrome and also in case there is a liver metastasis.
Okay, so this is not only for anesthesia, for metastasis workup also you need to do a LFT also. Okay.
Yes.
What is anything else which is important in RCC?
Sir, serum calcium.
Yes. Renal. Yes, because you are planning for a partial nephrectomy, radical nephrectomy in RCC. So you need to know what is the creatinine level. On that basis, you need to decide whether you go for a radical nephrectomy or partial nephrectomy. Not in this case, in smaller tumors. Okay. Calcium is one thing. Why?
Sir, because in case of in certain patients, we can have hypercalcemia as a part of paraneoplastic syndromes due to parathyroid hormone related protein secretion from the tumor itself.
Okay. So in exam, I think what you should say is, while you say other investigations, you first tell which investigation which is specific to RCC, calcium, LDH, hemoglobin level, creatinine, LFT. These 5 other things which have some prognostic indications. This is not like a hernia or a CA bladder. Specific for RCC, you need to tell these things separately because this is clinical implication. Okay. I'm not going into detail for anesthesia checkup and all other investigations. Okay. So, so can you tell me the staging in this patient? I'll tell you, this is a 7 into 10 centimeter tumor confined within the gerotas. There is no renal vein or IVC thrombosis. There is no lymph node enlargement in CT. So what is the staging? You know the staging of
Sir,
RCC?
yes, sir, I know.
Okay.
Sir, it will be a T2A N0M0.
G2A incident. Oh, fine. Okay. So how do you manage this patient? This patient has a creatinine of 1.2, LFT is normal, and T2A N0M0.
Sir, I would like to plan this patient for radical nephrectomy.
Radical. What are the structures you remove in radical nephrectomy?
Sir, the left-sided kidney along with the Gerota's fascia, then the renal vessels and the ureter and local lymph nodes and
okay, the description is kidney along with the Gerota's fascia or extrafacial resection, first thing. Second is early vascular control. That is the principle of radical nephrectomy. Third is ureter, not the whole ureter. Which part of the ureter removed?
Sir, upper 1/3 of the ureter is removed. Sir, upper 1/3.
Or up to the, at least up to the lower pole of kidney. Okay. So you have to be specific, because if you do a radical nephrectomy in case of PCC, upper tract PCC, you have to take the whole ureter. So this is different from PCC. In RCC, you only take the upper ureter, at least to the lower pole of the kidney. What about the ipsilateral adrenal gland?
Sir, it has been previously adrenal gland was taken out during radical nephrectomy, but it has been seen that only in around 10% cases there is concomitant affection of the adrenal gland. So it is not taken out routinely these days.
So what are the situations you will take out the adrenal gland?
Sir, if there is gross infiltration into the adrenal gland or raised serum enzymes from the adrenal gland, or in case of von Hippel-Lindau disease where...
No, it's not like that. The first indication was right. If you think there is contiguous involvement of the adrenal gland, if you think an abnormal adrenal gland in the CT, or paraoperatively you think the adrenal gland is abnormal on palpation, okay, and very huge tumor when all of the kidney is destroyed by the tumor. So these are the 4 indications. Okay, nothing to do with the functional status of the adrenal or the enzymes. Okay.
Okay, sir.
If it is radiologically or clinically abnormal, or it is a huge tumor destroying the kidney, this is the indication. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And regarding the lymphadenectomy, what is the current status?
I don't know, sir.
Okay. Initially,
you said you remove the lymph nodes, adjacent lymph node. What lymph nodes are there? What are the lymph nodes immediately adjacent to the kidney? Where are they?
Sir, para-aortic lymph nodes are there.
Para-aortic are not immediately adjacent to the kidney. There are some lymph nodes around the hilum of the kidney.
Okay, sir.
And then you have the secondary nodes along the para-aortic nodes.
Okay, sir.
So initially it was described that you have to do a formal lymphadenectomy from the crus of diaphragm to the pelvic inlet. But now it has been seen that since most of the metastasis from RCC is bloodstream borne, so just doing a lymphadenectomy, it does not give any survival benefit. But yes, if you do a local lymphadenectomy, hilar lymph nodes are enlarged, and you can find some metastasis there, it's a prognostic indicator. It does not give any survival advantage. So unless it is clinically, radiologically involved or enlarged lymph nodes, you do not need to do a lymphadenectomy. Okay, that is a distant status. So suppose you get a RCC versus transitional cell carcinoma of the renal pelvis. Is the treatment different? You know, because that is a differential diagnosis of RCC. You know the treatment difference? You need to know this.
No, sir. No, sir. I don't know.
Yes, the difference is in RCC, you need to remove only the upper part of the ureter. In TCC, remove the whole of the ureter along with the bladder cuff. Okay.
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 Okay, sir.
Can you tell me the steps of radical nephrectomy? Left-sided radical nephrectomy.
Yes.
Have you seen radical nephrectomy?
No, sir, I have not seen.
Okay. Have you read steps of, because this will be asked in exam steps?
You go
Sir,
transperitoneal or
I know.
retroperitoneal? What is the usual approach? Transperitoneal or retroperitoneal?
Sir, transperitoneal approach.
Okay. Why transperitoneal?
Sir, because the vessels can be exposed easily in the transperitoneal approach.
No. Vessel can be exposed easily from posteriorly. Okay. Renal artery. What is the hilar anatomy? Anterior to posterior. Anatomy question. Tell me.
Sir, first we have. So first we have the renal artery, then the renal vein, and then the ureter. We have the renal vein, then the artery, and then the ureter. Anterior to posterior, sir.
No.
It's just reverse.
Reverse. What I'm talking is a posterior approach. Anteriorly, if you go by transperitoneal, you find the pelvis first, and then the vein, and then the artery. So if you go reverse, retroperitoneal is reverse again.
Okay, so artery is the most posterior thing. So if you want to ligate the artery, then you have to go retroperitoneal. This is an earlier teaching that you need to go transperitoneally, because the idea was you need to see the liver, you need to see ascites, you need to see lymph nodes. But now with the advent of good radiology, you can tell this patient has liver nodule, this patient. So there is no difference between transperitoneal, anything you can say, but you need to know the steps. Okay, sir, the steps jigesh kore to?
Yes, there is a card. Radical nephrectomy is a card.
So have you read? No.
So if you go by retroperitoneal, what should be the standard incision? Standard incision for a nephrectomy, if you go by retroperitoneal approach.
Sir, I don't know, sir.
Okay, you should read. Okay, it should be a patient position is different for a retroperitoneal approach for kidney. Okay, it's known as standard kidney position. Okay, you read it. So we can discuss some other part. You say radical nephrectomy. What is the concept now? People are saying that nephron sparing surgery for RCC. Do you think this is possible in this patient?
Sir, it is usually done in case where there are bilateral renal cancers. Both the kidneys will be taken up.
This
so
patient, do you think, in this patient, do you think this is feasible with a renal mass of 10.5 and this dimension?
Yes, sir, it can be done.
No.
So yeah, there are some specific indications for nephron sparing surgery. Earlier it was called partial nephrectomy, now it calls a nephron sparing surgery. So idea is to preserve as much of renal tissue as possible, but you should not compromise the cancer control. That is the first thing, oncology control. So if you get a tumor which is less than 4 centimeter, nowadays, normally we do not go for a radical nephrectomy, we go for a partial nephrectomy. So if you are asked in the exam the indications of partial nephrectomy, there are two types of indication. One is where you can do a partial nephrectomy, and second indication where you should do a partial nephrectomy, you don't have any other option. The first option is if you have a small tumor less than 4 centimeter, ideally, but some people can, in few patients, up to 10 centimeter it can be done, 7 centimeters, it should have changed. So ideally, tomar level, you will say, sir, it is a 4 centimeter tumor, I'll go for partial nephrectomy. That is one indication. And second indication, you don't have any other option. Patient has bilateral tumors. You cannot do a radical nephrectomy on both the sides. So you have to do, at least try to do a partial nephrectomy one side. In those cases, you can increase the size of the tumor. 7 centimeter, 10 centimeter, at least 20 to 30% remaining kidney tissue should be there. Okay. So this is a patient who is 52 years with a 10 centimeter tumor unilateral. There is no scope for partial nephrectomy. Suppose this patient has a 10 centimeter tumor on this side and 4 centimeter tumor on the opposite side. Or this patient is a patient of von Hippel-Lindau disease or familial tumor, or this patient has recurrent tumors, multiple tumors. In those cases, partial nephrectomy, yes, but not in this case. T2A disease, unilateral disease, no question of partial nephrectomy. You have to do a radical nephrectomy. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So,
okay, sir.
So you need to know the steps of partial nephrectomy, at least the principles of partial nephrectomy. What should you do and how to do it. Okay.
Adjuvant therapy. Adjuvant. Yeah.
Suppose this patient comes with a lesion in the first 2 centimeters of the IVC. So how do you manage this?
Okay.
Will you send the patient for radiotherapy or radiotherapy colleague, or will do something? 10 centimeter with renal vein and IVC thrombus.
Sir, sir, radiotherapy or chemotherapy has not shown very good response in case of renal cell carcinoma. So I would call my CTVS PDT and do a venotomy and remove the thrombus from the IVC. And then post-operatively, I will send the patient for chemotherapy or immunotherapy.
Okay, the idea is if you have a IVC thrombus or renal vein thrombus, treatment is surgical. It's not for the medical oncologist. Okay, I'll not go to the details. Suppose this patient comes with multiple liver mets along with tumor. What is the treatment?
Sir, resection of the metastasis along with radical nephrectomy, followed by adjuvant.
So yeah, you said radical nephrectomy. What does this term radical mean? This patient has multiple liver mets. Can you do a radical nephrectomy in patient who has multiple liver mets?
It's already metastatic disease. Do you need to have a radical surgery? So?
No, sir, we can't do it. So I will send the patient for upfront chemoradiation.
No, there is a role for primary surgery. There is a role for primary surgery. The primary surgery is what?
Sir, only
nephrectomy.
Palliative nephrectomy.
Yes.
Okay. See, for the students, I'll tell. See, whenever you get a RCC in exam, you need to know what is the stage. That is the most important thing. Either localized disease, either locally advanced in the form of IVC thrombosis, or it's a metastatic disease. If it is a localized disease, no confusion. Go for either a radical nephrectomy or for a partial nephrectomy, depending of the stage of the disease, depending on whether it is a bilateral disease or unilateral disease. No confusion. If it is a locally advanced disease in the form of IVC thrombus and RCC, there is no confusion. Go for a surgery, radical nephrectomy and IVC thrombectomy. Your intent here is curative. So radical nephrectomy. But if it is a metastatic disease, there is no curative intent. You have to do a palliative therapy. So either you can go for a palliative nephrectomy if the patient has recurrent hematuria, or if the patient does not have any hematuria, then you do not need to do a nephrectomy also. Okay. For the patient, what you are telling, immunotherapy or receptor blockers, all those things. Chemotherapy mostly does not have any role in RCC. Do you know the reason why chemotherapy is not given in RCC?
Sir, the tumors are relatively chemo-resistant.
Okay, why it is chemo-resistant?
Oh, no, sir, I don't know that reason.
Okay, it has been seen that there are multiple receptors, multi-drug resistant receptors on the surface of the RCC cells. So whatever chemotherapy you give, by effluxing mechanism, that agent is thrown out of the cells. So chemotherapy is not effective. So what are the options? You know the options in metastatic disease?
Sir, we can give vascular endothelial growth factor receptor and mTOR receptor, drugs which act on these receptors.
Okay, sir, ওদেরকে এটা জিজ্ঞেস করে এক্সামে এতটা?
হ্যাঁ, মোটামুটি adjuvant interferon therapy and the newer drugs like sorafenib and other bevacizumab, endothelial growth. So they are newer drugs which are coming up for adjuvant treatment. They should have some idea about this.
Sir, arekta ওদের একটু জানতে হবে. One thing you need to know is what is the difference between a palliative nephrectomy and cytoreductive nephrectomy. You have heard the things palliative and cytoreductive? Shreya?
Yes, sir, I have heard the terms.
Okay, what is palliative and what is cytoreductive?
Sir, palliative is like we discussed, when the patient has metastasis, then we are doing a palliative nephrectomy. We are taking out the whole kidney there, but cytoreductive is like partial nephrectomy where we are taking out the. Okay.
No, this is not the palliative part is fine. The patient has metastatic disease. There is no chance of cure, but the patient is symptomatic. So you need to palliate the symptoms. Okay, that is palliative. You do a nephrectomy. The surgical steps are same, but the intent is palliation of the symptoms. Cytoreductive is in patients who are fit for therapies, these tyrosine kinase inhibitors, receptor blockers. In those patients, you remove the tumor. It's not partially. Remove as much of tumor as possible. You do a nephrectomy and put the patient on these therapies. The surgery is same, intent is different. One patient you are doing only surgery to palliate symptoms who is not fit, may not be fit for any therapy, and one patient you are doing a nephrectomy to reduce the tumor burden so that the tumor, this agent acts better. Okay, basically same thing, intent is different. Okay. So you have done a radical nephrectomy. So you are planned for a radical nephrectomy in this patient. So how do you counsel this patient? Before surgery, you need to tell something to the patient. Now, what are the things? What are the paraoperative complications, and how do you follow up this patient?
Sir, intraoperative. Peroperative complications, there can be hemorrhage during the surgery or infections after the surgery. Main counseling will be said that the patient will be left with only one kidney, and so the patient has increased chances of developing renal failure or other kidney disease, and chances of requirement of renal transplantation in future.
You see, the chances of developing CRF or CKD in future is not that what you are thinking. Less than 25% in future. So you need to counsel about the paraoperative complications, mostly bleeding, and post-operative regular follow-up of disease recurrence. That is most important thing. And regular follow-up for development of any CKD in future. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So do you know what are the sites from where normally bleeding occurs in radical nephrectomy?
Sir, in case we tie the vein first and the artery later.
Before you go into the vein, there are some renal cell carcinoma where surgeon cannot reach the hilum. When? Before you reach the hilum, you have a tremendous risk of bleeding. From where? Can there be a torrential bleed before you reach the renal hilum? That can be predicted by seeing the CT scan even. What happens in renal cell carcinoma? Regarding vascularity?
So there is angiogenesis, yes, and a lot of blood vessels
on the surface.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So So they are the vessel which bleeds.
Okay.
Okay, fine. If in exam, if you are told about the sites of bleeding, you need to know few sites. One is angiogenesis. Sometimes it is there and huge angiogenesis. Second is main hilar vessels, renal artery, renal vein. Third is gonadal
Yes.
vein. Fourth is arenal vein. If you go through the surgical steps, you'll understand better. Okay, since you have not read the surgical steps, you need to read. Okay. So anything else in RCC?
No, okay. Then you see now there is some concept change regarding earlier you said only RCC, clear cell carcinoma, but now people are coming up with the idea that the histological variants can predict the outcome. Do you know some other histological variant of RCC? One is clear cell carcinoma,
Yes.
that is the commonest one. What else?
So there are papillary non-clear cell renal,
Yes.
non-clear cell renal cell carcinomas, which include papillary type, chromophobe type,
Yes.
medullary, then
Yes. Good.
collecting duct.
Yes.
All those things are included.
So how these histological varieties kind of some prediction regarding the outcome?
Sir, these have a poorer prognosis as compared to clear cell carcinoma.
Not all.
No. See, RCC, that depends on the year. If you compare the RCC with papillary carcinoma type 1, so RCC has a worse prognosis. Okay. If you have a sarcoid differentiation, that is a worst prognosis. But if you take metastatic disease, RCC is better. Clear cell RCC is better because all these drugs which are effective nowadays, most of them works better on clear cell RCC. So for localized disease, clear cell RCC is bad. Sarcoma is worst compared to for metastatic disease, clear cell is better. Can you tell me why it is called a clear cell RCC and why it is a chromophobe RCC? Why it is clear cell RCC?
Sir, due to the histologic appearance of the cells.
What is the histologic appearance?
On staining, how does a clear cell appears?
Sir, I don't know, sir.
So the name implies clear cell. Clear cell, there is nothing, almost nothing in the cytoplasm. You can see the cell membranes and you cannot
see the nucleus at one end.
Okay, so why it is clear? Because the contents in RCC is mostly cholesterol, esters, and phospholipids. So when you prepare the slides, most of these contents are dissolved by the solvents and nothing is there inside the cell. So it looks a clear appearance on histopathology. That is why it's called clear cell RCC. This is an exam question. You need to know clear cell RCC.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
And the newer drugs has developed based on these histological subtypes, where they are more associated with the vascular growth, you use VEGF inhibitors, and some newer immunotherapy. Okay, I think you should read the steps of nephrectomy, the complications of nephrectomy, and the adjuvant treatment also. Yeah, Dr. Sarkar, yes, you have gone through the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shreya.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.